Herkese merhaba. Hi everyone. My name is Sarp Kerem Yavuz and I'm the artistic director of the Contemporary Istanbul Foundation. I am currently inviting Nick Buckley Wood to join us. And he'll be joining us shortly. For those of you who are just joining us and who do not yet know what we're doing over here, this is the first of Contemporary Istanbul Foundation's Bridges programming. And the Bridges programming is an extension of the Contemporary Istanbul Foundation Dialogues, where we invite speakers from all around the world to discuss issues pertaining to contemporary art, be it artists, representatives of global institutions, and in today's case, the private sales director for Asia from Sotheby's, Nick Buckley Wood. He'll be joining us imminently. And in the meantime, I'll just keep the channel running to greet you all. Nick, can you hear us? Can you see us? Aha, we
Hi,
did it.
Sarp.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for joining us. I haven't done one of these in a long time too, so we're both on the same train here.
My first live IG live.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. Where are you
Yeah,
joining us
thanks for
from?
having me. I'm in Hong Kong.
Okay. And what time is it over there? We were hoping that this wasn't horribly late for Hong Kong time, but
No, it's fine. It's 8 p.m. So
oh, okay.
it's
That's reasonable,
civilized.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for those of you who are joining us now, once again, my name is Sarp Kerem Yavuz, and I'm the artistic director of the Contemporary Istanbul Foundation. I am joined by Nick Buckley Wood, who is the private sales director for Asia for Sotheby's. Um, Nick, I would love, before we get into all of the questions that I've prepared, I would love it if you could give everyone a short overview of how one ends up being head of private sales in Asia for Sotheby's.
Sure. So I've been at Sotheby's for 5 years, and in Hong Kong. I grew up in Hong Kong, and I'm half Chinese, half English. So I've spent most of my career, actually all of my career in China, in Beijing, Shanghai, and then in Hong Kong, um, since 2010. And I worked for a gallery in Shanghai, and then worked for a European gallery called Tadeusz Ropac, which they're in Paris and London and Salzburg. And we opened a gallery in Korea, in Seoul, which is a very kind of interesting art market, which we can get onto later. Um, and I joined Sotheby's during the pandemic, and the private sales department is a new department. It was started about 10 years ago, um, when the auction houses were always doing private sales, but they wanted to kind of make official the department. So before it was, different specialists were doing private sales, but there were no focused people. And now there's a team of about 20 private sales uh, people around the world, and I'm looking after Asia.
And I think you and I met when you were still at Ropak, when you were still at the gallery, and I think we met
Correct.
in Basel, no?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I was trying to remember earlier, like how long it's been. I think we've probably known each other for what, 10, 15 years at this point.
Yeah, 10 years. I joined the Ropac 2015, so around 10,
Yeah.
11 years. Yeah.
And do you do you sort of miss the gallery world of it all, or do you are you happier in the auction business?
They're extremely different, I have to say.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, the auction business is much more numbers focused than the gallery business. But it's a really important part of the whole art ecosystem. So I think it's been a real eye opener for me, having done 10 years of primary, to move on to the secondary side. And especially within Asia, the tastes are changing constantly.
Mhm.
The market's moving very fast. So, 15 years ago, Chinese and Asian collectors were mostly buying Chinese art and Asian art. And then about 10 years ago, that shifted. And a lot of the Chinese and Asian collectors started buying Western art,
Mhm.
contemporary. And at the same time, there was a big interest in contemporary and modern secondary market as well. So the contemporary art scene in Asia is relatively young. The boom of Chinese art was 2005 onwards, for about 10 years. So uh, I was in kind of the right place at the right time, for uh, what people were looking for, in Asia.
I remember, I think this was actually happening in the maybe the 2 3 years around the time that we first met, where there was a big sort of focus on Chinese art, both historic and contemporary, but also Asian art in a more broad sense in the art market. And then I sort of observed that dying down, and I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on what's happening right now, because I do believe that we're witnessing a resurgence.
Yeah, you're right. It's very different to what was happening, let's say, 15 years ago.
Mm,
15 years ago, it was predominantly China,
mhm,
Chinese art, and there was kind of this explosion onto the international scene of Chinese artists from the 80s and 90s, uh, who, sorry, they were working starting from the 80s and 90s, so they're probably born in the 60s and 70s.
right.
And it was very international. American collectors were buying Chinese, European collectors were buying Chinese art, and Chinese collectors were buying Chinese art. And this created a huge surge in the market and interest for these probably, 10 to 20 Chinese artists,
Mhm,
led by Chinese collectors, and the growth of China and the emergence of China onto the international scene. Um, Probably, um, the emblem of that was probably the Beijing Olympics in 2008, which was a huge spectacle. And China was kind of showing everyone how strong and creative they were, or they are. And um, that definitely died down. I think the market became, very, very, probably too overheated,
mm,
as these things tend to do, as we've seen recently with other trends. Um, and we're starting to see again a kind of resurgence of Asian collectors. And notice I say Asian because it's broadened now
mhm.
to Southeast Asian, Korean, even the Japanese are starting to. I mean, Japanese artists have always been collected internationally, but the collectors are starting to um, become a bit more active in Japan. But what we're seeing is, rather than a wave of um, people wanting 15 artists from one country,
Mhm.
the market is much more kind of dotted around. So there's, a few big collectors from China still buying. There's a few big collectors from Korea buying. There's, pockets of buyers in Southeast Asia, Singapore, Indonesia. Thailand is having a moment right now. So, um, and that's not just for buyers, that's for artists as well. So there's a
Right.
few kind of artists dotted around that people are looking at. And at the same time, there's been this kind of flight to quality. So people are collecting um, kind of better stuff in the past few years. They're looking for historically important things or the best works by certain artists. Whereas when the market is super overheated, people just, they buy
Everything.
whatever they can get their whole everything, whatever
Yeah.
they can get their hands on. So, which kind of is what happened, back in the day with the first wave of Chinese art was that, a lot of things were going for very high prices, which maybe didn't deserve to be
Mm.
so high. And now we've seen, the five artists from China from that period who have survived the market and are still being sold at auction now. But a lot of those other artists, won't ever be seen again. And this is the same for New York artists in the 80s. If you look at all how many artists were being shown in the 80s in New York and how many survive now as names from the 80s, is probably 10. And back then there were probably 100 or 200. So um, we kind of think that everything is, all these market trends are new and fresh, but human nature, collecting, historical cycles,
Yeah.
they're always the same.
So for a lot of people who will be, for a lot of our guests coming to Contemporary Istanbul this September, they'll be introduced to a lot of institutions, a lot of artists that they've never even heard of
Yeah,
coming from Asia. And one of the big internal debates that we've had actually was what do we call this thing? Do we call it Focus Asia Pacific? Do we call it Focus, China one year, Focus Korea, Focus Japan, Focus Thailand? How do we even begin to talk about this? And we've decided to just divide programming into two. So this coming year's edition will be Focus Asia Part 1. And we kept it deliberately open ended so that we can invite as many institutions and as many artists as possible from one of the most diverse regions on the planet. But while we were struggling with this, one of the questions that came up was if we, as professionals in this field, are struggling so hard to curate this, to talk about this, how do we even begin to teach the people who are coming at this with fresh eyes what they should be looking at, what they should be looking out for? So I would love to get your opinion on how someone approaching Asian art with fresh eyes should approach it, should be what they should be thinking about, what names, if any, they should be on the lookout for, or what patterns they should sort of investigate further.
sure. Um, so I think firstly, see as much as you can. And I think this, the first step, go to the fair and check out all the kind of galleries that you guys have selected and see what your eye is attracted to.
Hmm.
Um, and then, uh, and then I suppose, uh, depending on your budget, there's very established artists which you can look at, dead artists, and there's also emerging artists. And different galleries specialize in different things. So, I would look at there's a lot of very talented young artists coming out of Asia right now.
Hmm.
Um, and a few galleries that are leaders in their field around Asia, um, and also perhaps some historically overlooked artists who were active in the 60s and 70s, which were kind of pivotal times for much of Asia,
Hmm.
becoming independent. Um, and Chinese artists from the 80s and 90s were also super important because these were really important historical times. So a lot of great art was created as well. Uh, so yeah, I think a quick kind of Google is always great for each country. Who are the modern masters
Hmm.
from these countries, like the fathers of or mothers of contemporary art
Hmm.
uh, from from the mid 1900s, and then you can see where everything else kind of comes from. Um, but the first thing is just to see as much as you can and see what you like, and see what you're attracted to, because it's just it's a whole a whole undergrad plus master's course, contemporary art from Asia.
Fair enough. But
Yeah.
are there any artists that are on your radar right now who are either, established masters or better yet, even emerging artists that we should be on the lookout for?
Um,
Are you allowed to say without being?
I mean, there are there are so many. One one artist who I think is really fabulous, and the price is still quite reasonable, is an Indonesian artist called Murni, Murni.
Hmm.
And she passed away already about 20 years ago. And she's from Bali, feminist artist,
Hmm.
painter, and sculptor. And they're quite avant-garde for a Balinese artist, which is a very traditional society. There's lots of kind of sexual imagery, but it's kind of almost cartoony, so it's not too in your face. Um, it's kind of subtle and fun. So I think she's definitely one to look out for, and prices are not so high yet, but Sotheby's have started putting her in our sales, so
Hmm.
uh, she's one artist who I think is fantastic. Um, and there's a lot of great artists from Japan. So I think that is definitely uh, could be one focus as well. Emerging artists from Japan. There's so many um, great kind of young artists, very talented. And another trend that I'm seeing as well is diaspora artists. So
Hmm.
Asian artists based in America, or who grew up in America or in Europe, or have lived abroad for a long time and have just come back to their country of origin. I think that that's also often creates some very interesting dynamics.
Are there any diaspora artists that you'd like us to be on the lookout for, or that we can maybe even invite to this dialogue series?
There's a fabulous artist called Jan Vo, who's Danish Vietnamese.
Yeah,
I think
I
he's
think you and I
brilliant.
talked about. Yeah, we talked
He's
about Yanvo.
yeah, brilliant artist, conceptual sculptor. Uh, I think yeah, he should definitely be on your radar if he lives on a farm like an hour outside of Berlin, kind
I
of
love that.
farming. I don't know what he's farming, organic, produce. So you have to drag him from there.
I think post pandemic, that was all of our fantasy collectively. So I'm
Yeah,
glad someone
he's
is
had it
living it.
already. Yeah, lucky man, making art and raising goats.
Sounds idyllic. Um, Tell me what you've observed during Art Basel Hong Kong. I'm very sad to have missed it, but I was sort of fascinated by just how diverse of a selection there was on display at the fair because I was getting all the PDFs from different galleries, and I'm like,
Yeah,
there is no good way to say, oh, like this is the dominant trend now. If anything, it was just sort of wonderfully eclectic.
100%. And I think it's that is really the trend right now, what you just said. It's becoming more and more eclectic, and I'm seeing, new collectors all the time, young collectors from China, from Southeast Asia, who have extremely eclectic and um, uh, unique and very, they study a lot. Um, the taste is getting more and more sophisticated and uh, kind of eccentric. So I think that's what we're going to be seeing in the future.
Hmm.
There's still going to be the big names, of course, because we're human beings, and if an artist is great, they become a big name, everyone will still want it. But when it comes to emerging art, I think it's there's going to be more and more interesting stuff coming. And especially with kind of new, there's more art fairs, there's more access to new artists via Instagram or other kind of social media platforms. So I think, there's a voice for everyone. And I think that's we're living in a really wonderful, exciting time for creators and collectors. Because I mean, we have a lot of choice, um, and sometimes there's choice paralysis, because there's
Yeah.
too many choices. But if you can be focused, then I think we are really, living in the best time ever to be looking at art, collecting art, curating exhibitions.
What are your thoughts on digital art coming out of Asia right now?
I think it's exciting. There are pockets of really interesting digital artists. I think the next Leonardo da Vinci is
Mm,
going to be a digital art creator who
mm,
is a genius at um, creating, um, let's say, digital experiences.
hmm
So coding or using AI to make unbelievable kind of brain warping experiences, and who's also a great artist. And I think that that's going to be uh, the kind of future of digital art is going to be real life experiences
hmm
mixed with incredible, digital artists. Um, and obviously, there's a wonderful digital artist, Rafiq, who who is leading the way, Rafiq Anadol,
Right.
um, with his kind of installations. But I think people can even take it, one step further in the future and have these, almost like Team Lab meets Rafiq, but even
Mm,
more kind of because technology is getting better and better, right? So once we can really, at the moment, VR doesn't actually feel like reality. You know
right.
what I mean? It feels like you're putting on something and there's pixelated. I mean, the Google Glass is amazing, and the iPhone, the Apple, can't
Vision.
remember what it's called, Vision, Apple Vision is also very nice. But when you actually think you are somewhere else,
hmm
and you can feel stuff, you can smell stuff. That is when you'll be able to create these incredible experiences, like you're in a dream or you're in an alternate reality. And an artist who can kind of master both the technological side and the creative side, I think
Mm.
he's going to be, or he or she is going to be the next um, Leonardo da Vinci.
Are there any Asian digital artists that we should be on the lookout for, or that sort of, I don't know, grabbed your attention during Zero Ten Hong Kong?
Um, I mean, the not so much in that sense for like immersive, but for video art, there's a great Chinese artist called Lu Yang who I think is
Hmm.
is wonderful. He's yeah, he creates kind of almost like video games, and he's the main protagonist, but they're super trippy, very emotional, and they have a strong kind of narrative, which I think is quite exciting.
hmm
Um, and I mean, there's lots of artists who use digital art, but they're a bit old now. Namjoon Park, who's like the father of
Sure.
Korean and American video art, um, is wonderful. But he was already making digital art with televisions and LEDs in the 80s. So uh, I'm excited for the next generation. So I hope it comes soon because I'm very bored of these terrible VR experiences. Oh, Jordan Wolfson, genius,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
not Asian. But I
Not
have
Asian.
he's done
No, but I agree with you.
yeah, he's done some fantastic pieces. Wow. Yeah.
Well, I think the last time I saw you was in Basel when he was showing that piece downstairs at
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 the
the
at
V.
the yeah, at the Byler.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, fabulous, wonderful piece, crazy, crazy. Yeah,
So you're
what a
saying the
mind.
ideal digital art is something that heads in that direction, where it's an immersive experience rather than something you behold on a screen.
I think it's going to be between the two. So it's going to be something on your screen which you're like, wow, this is incredible. I've never seen anything like that. But also, an experience that you go into, and maybe someone is taking a video of it, and then you look at it on your IG.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think that will be. I'm very excited for that to happen. When you hear something so new and fresh from a singer,
Hmm.
and then they become huge. It's going to be the same thing with this artist.
Final
Universal,
question. Final
yes.
question for you. If you could curate your dream exhibition with any artist from the impossible to pin down region of Asia, solo exhibition, who would
Has
it
to be
be?
solo.
Yeah.
Um, okay, an artist who I've been. Can I say two?
Sure.
Okay, so two artists who I love. They're both dead, unfortunately, and the works are both extremely hard to get hold of. So this
Mm,
is my dream exhibition. It would probably be a dialogue between the two. One is Isamu Noguchi, who is a Japanese American
right.
sculptor, and I think his mostly stone sculptures, but also metal and all other kinds of materials.
Hmm.
I think they're genius and extremely beautiful. And then another artist who I think is also a sculptor who passed away, um, is a Thai artist called Montien Boonma,
Well, that's a new name for me.
Bonnma. And his works are also impossible to get. They're mostly in collections in Thailand.
Hmm.
But he is really, really special. So if you get to see his works, and there's actually a new museum in Thailand called DIB.
Hmm.
It's a contemporary art museum which just opened last year,
Hmm.
and there's a whole room of his work there. So if you're in Bangkok, go to DIB,
Dib.
DIB Museum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Is there anything you wish that I had asked that I didn't?
No, you dug deep into my soul, Sarp. You squeezed every last piece of knowledge out of me.
Oh, I don't think that's true. But I'm sad that we won't be able to see you this year in Contemporary Istanbul, but hopefully we'll be able to invite you to come in person for upcoming editions. And
Yeah.
maybe I'll see you in Venice, and if not, in Basel.
I'll see you in Venice. Yeah.
All right. Thank
Nice
you
to
so
see
much for
you.
joining us. Everyone,
Yeah.
thank you for watching the first CIF Bridges talk. Our next talk will be in 2 weeks at the same time, and we'll announce the speaker shortly. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.